welcome to today's virtual event with LA County Library, Careers in STEAM, Ballona Creek Trash Interceptor Pilot Project. Today's program is going to be presented by Tiffany Chang, an Associate Civil Engineer at LA County Public Works. She received both her bachelor's degree in environmental science and a master's degree in civil engineering from UC Berkeley. Her experience includes a variety of infrastructure projects, including roadway resurfacing, channel reconstruction, spreading grounds improvement, and disaster recovery efforts. Currently, she is the project manager for the Ballona Creek Trash Interceptor Pilot Project. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Tiffany, and I will hand things over to you.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for that introduction. I'm really excited to be here with everyone today to share a little bit more about STEAM. I'm sure you guys know what that is, but I'll go ahead and cover that later in the presentation, but also what we do here at Public Works, and more importantly, my role as a project manager for the Ballona Creek Trash Interceptor Pilot Projects. So without further ado, just a little bit more about me. So Vicki did cover a bit of it, but again, my name is Tiffany. I've been an associate civil engineer with Public Works. I've been here for about 4 years now. And yes, my background was originally in environmental science, so not originally in engineering, but I did go back to school and later got my master's in civil engineering. So I hail from a city called West Covina, California. You may have heard of it. The show Crazy Ex-Girlfriends is actually based in that city, so fun fact. So my interests include spending time indoors and outdoors. So if I'm outdoors, you can often find me biking. I find that to be a really great way to explore LA County from places that you may not normally see from your car. So I encourage everyone out there, get on your bikes, explore some of the cool trails that we have. And if I am spending time indoors, I often like, spending time playing video games. So I enjoy puzzle games, things that stimulate the creative side. I also really enjoy baking. So I recently got into sourdough baking. So it's kind of a fun, almost like a science project. You can tweak a variable here and there to see how it'll affect your dough. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about STEAM. What does STEAM stand for? Those of you in the audience, can you go ahead and type in the chat box what you think STEAM stands for? Any guesses at all? Give a couple seconds for those of you to type it in the chat. All right, got a couple. Whoa, okay. Wow, you guys know your stuff. Okay, so yes, S stands for science, right? T for technology. Yep. E for engineering. A for arts. And I see a comment here that someone enjoys the addition of A to STEAM. I do too. And M, last but not least, mathematics, right? So each of these fields are interesting in its own way. And there's a wide variety of options out there for anyone interested in pursuing STEAM for your career. So what's really cool is that here at LA County Public Works, we have a bit of every aspect of STEAM represented. So for science, we have scientists such as geologists, environmental scientists, hydraulic specialists. For technology, we have our IT team and computer experts who keep our websites and equipment running. And of course, engineering, we have our civil engineers, such as myself. We also have electrical engineers and mechanical engineers. Under arts, we have our landscape architects and our designers. And last but not least, under mathematics, we have our accountants and analysts who make sure that here at Public Works, we're using our taxpayer dollars smart and we are able to sustain a healthy fund and budget. So with all those different roles under one agency, you might be asking, well, what does Public Works do? Well, we provide public infrastructure and municipal services to protect and enrich the lives of over 10 million residents here in LA County. And what's really cool about LA County is, if you think about it, we have so many different regions that we have to build infrastructure in, right? We have beaches, we have mountains, we have deserts, we even have very dense urban areas such as downtown LA. So that's a pretty big project. So you might be asking, what does that mean? Well, we can break that down into 6 different types of services that we provide here to everyone. And that's what we call our 6 core service areas. So that's water resources, things like water conservation, how we provide water to the public. We have our environmental services, so things like making sure that everything is properly disposed of. We have our transportation, so things like managing streets, guardrails, lights, public buildings. Those of you that go to school, that's a public building for some, and of course, our LA County Public Libraries. We have our development services, so that involves things like buildings, permits, and last but not least, emergency management, where we assist with first responders in the case of an emergency, such as wildfires and earthquakes. So before we go any further, let's pause right here to see if anyone has any questions about STEAM or public works in general. Feel free to type your questions into the chat box and Vicky will go ahead and read them out loud for us. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so don't worry, we have a Q&A at the end that we can go ahead and share those questions as well. All right, so jumping ahead to water resources. So now that we know what the 6 core service areas are in public works, let's talk a little bit more about water resources. So I'm in the stormwater planning division, which as you can guess from the name, it means that I'm planning for stormwater projects. So we have 2 primary goals that we try to achieve with every one of our projects. But the primary goals, first and foremost, are flood risk management and to conserve water. As everyone is probably aware of, California is in a drought. So we're going to do our best, everyone, to water our lawns less or things like washing our cars less. We also have secondary goals to improve our water quality. We also try to improve the habitat for animals to use. And last but not least, in our projects, we want to create a safe space, safe area for the public and the community to use. Now, let's talk about trash. So the initial question that we need to address is, what kind of trash do you guys see and how does that trash end up in our creeks and waterways? So any guesses from the audience? What, if you guys took a walk around the neighborhood, what's something you saw lately? Maybe that was in the gutters or maybe at the park, on the streets. Okay, I see a couple. Oh, yeah, that's right. Someone said masks. So that's been pretty prevalent lately because the last 2 years, right? The pandemic. So unfortunately, I see a lot of that too. I see some answers, mattresses. Oh, unfortunately, yeah, we do have a mattress disposal system. So actually, let's see what other answers. Cigarettes, yep, food bags, chips. Yeah, so people are getting a lot of takeout, right? So if the trash such as the takeout containers, like or soda cans, even pet waste, if you see someone not picking up after their pets, if that's not properly disposed of, it can actually end up as litter on our sidewalks or in our streets, right? And water runoff from things such as washing your car or during a storm, that can pick up that trash and then it carries it into our storm drains. And then once it's in there, that trash just washes out to the ocean, into our creeks and then our oceans, excuse me. So the county has worked hard to educate and implement initiatives to stop the trash at the origin of its journey. So you might have seen our Trash Travels With You. That's our anti-littering campaign that was led by the county. We also recently banned the use of single-use plastics in unincorporated areas, so that'll take effect in 2023. However, despite public education campaigns and single-use plastic bans, this alone will not be enough to prevent trash from getting into our creeks and our oceans. So this image here shows the amount of trash that flows into Ballona Creek after just one rainstorm. So that yellow floating net that you can see, that's called a trash boom, and we use it to try to capture as much of that trash as we can behind it before it has a chance to flow downstream. However, it is not a perfect system, as I'll show you on the next slide. So trash can bypass that boom and then it can make its way towards the ocean. And due to the tides and the waves, that trash can actually flow back onto our beaches, or it can even flow out into the Pacific Ocean to join the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So this is a photo that we took of the beach the day after a storm, and this is just a small portion of what washed up. What you can't see is everything behind us, and it's just really saddening to see how much trash ends up on our beaches. So, understanding how trash travels and bringing awareness is the biggest step that we can take towards addressing trash issues. But in addition to this, I have the chance to work on a really cool project in Ballona Creek to try and capture that trash before it can enter our oceans. So, as the project manager, I'm very excited to share more with everyone today about the Ballona Creek Trash Interceptor pilot project. So, this interceptor technology is developed by a group called the Ocean Cleanup. You might have heard of them. They are a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2013, and their headquarters are all the way on the other side of the globe in the Netherlands. So, as their name implies, their mission is to rid the world's oceans of plastics by targeting 1,000 of the world's largest polluting rivers that are estimated to produce 80% of the trash that flows into our oceans. So, LA County is partnering with the Ocean Cleanup to install their trash interceptor in LA, which is the first of its kind in the entire United States. Very cool stuff, right? So you might be asking what a project manager is or what do they do? So the way I like to think of it is you can think of a project manager as the head chef. Have any of you guys ever helped out your mom or dad cook dinner? So actually, as a fun project, let's go ahead and type something in the chat that you helped cook with your parents recently. Wow, you guys are cooking some very fancy stuff. All right. Ooh, I'm gonna pick something I ate that someone else also ate. Okay, pizza. Oh gosh, I love pizza. Good answer. So they might have asked you to maybe help chop up some vegetables, right? Some toppings that you're going to throw on your pizza. Or I see someone made pasta. Okay, so they might ask you to stir the pot, right? When you throw in the noodles. So that's one of many steps it takes to turn your ingredients into a meal. So you have to plan ahead the different steps, right? You got to boil your water, then throw your noodles in, but then you got to create your sauces or bake the pizza. So you have to do everything in the right order and then time everything so that it comes out nice and hot for everyone else to eat. So similarly, you can think of that project manager has to think of the overall picture and then work with others to achieve a goal. So it's a team effort to put together a project. And with that being said, here is a quick video to show you how the interceptor works. There should be some sound, so please let me know if you can't hear anything.
Meet the Interceptor. Developed by the Ocean Cleanup, this is the first scalable solution to prevent river plastic from entering the oceans. This is how it works. The solar-powered interceptors are strategically located in the river. Debris flows into the system, while boats are still able to pass. The barrier directs waste to the mouth of the interceptor. Here, a conveyor belt extracts the debris from the water onto a shuttle. Because the system functions autonomously, the shuttle knows when to equally distribute the waste into one of 6 dumpsters located on a separate barge. At any time, operators can remotely access the interceptor's dashboards from anywhere in the world. Once full, the interceptor automatically sends a message to local operators. The barge is brought back to shore, emptied for recycling, and reattached for further collection.
All right, so now that we know what the interceptor does, let's talk about where we're going to put it. So as an exercise, everyone, let's put on our engineering thinking caps. So as an engineer, you have to think of the pros and cons of each location. And you have to consider if the interceptor were to be placed there, would it be able to capture trash effectively? So sometimes a river might be too big or the water flows too fast, like it does in the LA River. So we have to cross that off our list. Or sometimes there's already animals living in the creek or the rivers. So it's not a good idea to put something in their home, right? So that means the interceptor would not be able to be placed in the San Gabriel River, even though the water flow rate is slow enough for it. So after a lot of research and study, we decided to put the interceptor in Ballona Creek right before it outlets into the ocean. So it meets all of our criteria, and having it placed at the end means that it has the best chance to capture as much of that trash as possible. So here's a picture of it near the Pacific Avenue Bridge, just downstream of it. And here's a street view of the bridge for some context. All right, now comes the step where we design how to hold the interceptor in place. After all, we wouldn't want it to float away into the ocean, right? So as an engineer, you have to consider things like the weight of the interceptor and how it'll impact where it's anchored to, or maybe how the ocean tides affect the water level. So here at Public Works, we have a very talented and very smart group of engineers that help design how the interceptor will be anchored in place. So on the screen, you'll see a couple of other designs that they made. So those 4 blue lines that you can see on the left image, those are the chains that go under the water to make sure that rowers and other watercrafts can still pass through the creek. And those dashed red lines, those are the booms that will direct the trash towards the interceptor, similar to the way you saw in the video. So during storms, we'll have both of them up to make sure that we can catch as much trash as possible. But for most of the year, we'll only have 1 boom up. And now that we have design blueprints, next comes the construction, right? So you're making your pizza now. So if you go out there this weekend, you'll see some of the anchor points being made. It'll take us a few more weeks to finish everything, but come October, we hope to have the interceptor deployed for everyone to see. But to give you an idea of what it'll look like, this is a computer rendering of the interceptor in the creek from a bird's eye view. And here's another rendering of what you would see if you were to stand on the bike path. Another great way to utilize our bike paths in LA County and see things you might not see by car. So as a project manager, we have an interceptor in place, right? But now we have to think about how do we empty it after it's done collecting trash. So just like when your trash cans at home are full, you need to take it outside and empty it into your dumpster bin. So LA County Public Works worked with LA County Department of Beaches and Harbor, our sister agency, to figure out the best place we can empty the bins while sharing the space with the other boats in the marina adjacent to it. So you can see the trash barge in the middle of the interceptor can be ejected like the cassette tape and then hauled into the marina. And that's where we'll use cranes to empty the bins. And once those bins are empty, we can tug the barge back to the interceptor where it can continue to collect more trash. And kids, if you were wondering what a cassette tape is, you can ask your parents or guardians. So with this pilot project, the goal is for us to reduce the amount of trash that reaches our beaches and oceans. And public beaches are an important, equitable, and accessible amenity to all. And the goal of keeping them clean and protecting our marine ecosystem is extremely important for us here at LA County. So I'm really excited to be working on this project to educate everyone about it. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you all for listening. I hope you learned something really cool today. I'd love to answer some questions from the audience. And while we wait for those to come in, I'd like to encourage those of you in the audience to please take our survey. There is a QR code on the screen, and we'll go ahead and post it in the chat for everyone as well. So like Vicky said, your feedback will help us improve our program. So with that, I can go ahead and open it up to some questions for everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Tiffany. I have learned so much information myself, so I hope everyone did as well. And I do see questions coming in. Oh, so many. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so they're kind of all around here. So do we want to start with questions about this pilot project specifically, or would you like to get the questions more about you and your career first?
Oh, we can do a mix. Happy to do a mix of them, yeah.
Sure. So let's see. So we do have a few about the project, so we can start with those. So the first question we have here is, how long is the interceptor going to be at Ballona Creek, and how much does it cost to operate? You know that answer.
Yes. So this is a pilot project. So it's going to be in place for 2 years for now until we determine the final placement of it. So it could be Ballona Creek, it could be elsewhere, but we'll be using the information that we get from the pilot project as a way to determine that. And as for annual maintenance costs, we do anticipate it to be about $350,000 per year, but we're still working to get that number, and we'll be closely monitoring how much we spend on it. But one thing to note is that this interceptor was given to us by the Ocean Cleanup free of charge. So that's really cool.
That is, it's very, very cool. So we had a question about how many interceptors are there in general. Do you know that information off the top of your head?
Ooh, I believe there are 5 deployed elsewhere. It's Malaysia, I believe 2 in Malaysia, Indonesia, the Dominican Republic, and Singapore. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have a question of how, if you know how the interceptor is built.
Oh, that would be a better question actually for the Ocean Cleanup. I'm sorry, I'm not able to share that. It is assembled, I believe, with their partners overseas, and then it was shipped actually to us. So you can kind of see that. Actually, that's a picture of it at the U.S. Coast Guard base in Long Beach. So they shipped it over by a container boat, actually. So really cool stuff. They had the crane. They had the trash barge separately. They had a whole container of items, and they just kind of had it assembled here, or it was shipped assembled and some minor, I guess, attachments once it got here to LA. Yeah.
That makes sense. Another question that's related, do you know what it's made of?
The interceptor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit of I believe the boat, the actual, I guess the top part could be some sort of a plastic composite, like a vinyl composite. The trash barge itself, well, I mean, it has to float, right? So a lot of it is hollow. There are solar panels on top, but I could direct you guys over to the Ocean Cleanup's website. They should have some additional information on actual materials themselves. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I shared the link in the chat to Public Works website for the interceptor, so I can look at the other one and put that in the chat in the next few seconds. A couple more specific to this project, and then we can go kind of general with your position and career. And so there was a question regarding how the interceptor would affect any of the marine wildlife in the area, or if it does.
Yeah, so we did run an environmental assessment as part of this project and determined that there was minimal and environmental impacts. So as actually part of the project, we'll actually be conducting a bird and seal study while the interceptor is in place to make sure that basically that what our previous study is correct. Yeah. So we'll have that in place as well, so don't worry. Yeah, our birds and seals will be fine.
That's great. Sure, they'll have a fun show watching it too in action if they get
Yeah,
the chance, depending on where they're located.
Right? Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so there's a question regarding where the trash goes after it's collected.
Oh, that's a great question. I love that question. So as part of the study, we do have a trash characterization component. So that basically means we'll be actually all the trash that we'll be collecting, we'll be sorting through it. So things that we can recycle, such as plastics, we'll go ahead and separate those. And then we'll send those to a materials recycling facility, and everything else we're planning to take to a landfill to properly dispose of it. So otherwise, it would end up on the beach or float out into the ocean. So that's what we want to prevent as part of the project.
Yeah. Good to know. Okay, so some of these, okay, so you talked about the environmental assessment. Someone had a question about that. Everyone's on top of things. They know a lot. What's going on? This is great.
Yeah, great questions, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, this is a fun one. Someone wants to know what color the dumpsters are.
Yeah, so you can actually see them on the slide. So they're this kind of bright turquoise teal to make sure that when we are tugging it into the marina that it's visible to everyone around it. So we're making sure that all the boats that we share with the marina with, that they can, make sure we don't bump into anyone.
Great. And then there's a couple of questions related to information being shared with the public. So is there a place where, I know I shared the link to the website, which I can share again, and then when we send the follow-up link as well, we can send some additional information, but off the top of your head, if there's a place where people can go for more information and how to get involved?
So we do have a project website, so I can go ahead and share that at the
Great.
conclusion, or feel free to reach out to me as well. I'm not sure what kind of information we're able to share. That some of the data is proprietary to the ocean cleanup, but what we can share, we'll definitely have that on the website if there's enough interest. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and then someone's asking about Ocean Cleanup Volunteer Program, if there's one specifically for Ballona Creek.
I'm not sure at this time. That actually is a great question for the ocean cleanup. So I can't speak for them, but they have a contact us link, I believe, on their website.
Great. Okay, let me see if there's more for the Interceptor specifically. Let's see. I think you addressed this, but I'll go ahead and ask it again. So is the design of the Interceptor similar to collection equipment that may be used to collect trash in the ocean?
So that's actually, it's the ocean cleanup, right? So
Yeah.
I think this question is referring to their 002 or 003 system. So that technology, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same. If I had to hazard a guess as an engineer, I would say it's similar, but because you're dealing with a totally different environment, right? You're in the open ocean. It'll probably be a different setup. For this one, it's you have booms that you can connect to a landform, right? And then you have that funnel towards the interceptor onto a conveyor belt, and it's powered by solar panels. So I'm not sure about the ocean collection system. That's a great question.
Okay. So we'll change gears for a little bit. If you have more questions about the Interceptor and the project, specifically, feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll come back to that if there are any new questions or needs for clarification that we can provide. Well, that Tiffany can provide, not really me, but Tiffany can provide. I'm just a facilitator. So let's move on to you and your career. This is Careers in STEAM. You are a civil engineer. And so one of our questions was, what is the best part of your job as a civil engineer?
I think it's being able to use the creative side of my brain to try to figure out a problem instead of, every day is a little different, I guess. So for some, that might be a little bit, could be a little daunting, but I guess in a way it's making sure that I always stay sharp. Being an engineer means you have to actually reach out to different folks. So actually, specifically, if I can pivot that towards, I guess, being a project manager, it's, I almost think of it like jack of all trades. Like you do get your design experience, things more of that technical side of things, but being a project manager means you kind of have to reach out to different folks. You have to understand what they're designing, so you may not just know the exact details, but then you have to know enough to understand what they're designing works for the system or that project you're trying to do. So I also enjoy being here at Public Works as a civil engineer. It means that I get to deal with the public. So I mean, I'm here today. I just love these projects, getting to reach out to LA, working with LA County libraries. It means getting to interact with the public and more importantly, the kids, and getting to share some really cool projects that I get to work on. So it's like the young side of me, the kid side of me gets to come out a little bit too. So I'd say that's one of the coolest things about being a civil engineer.
Yeah, and I think especially with projects, like you've been saying, with projects like these, where when you think of public works, you kind of vaguely know what's going on, what a public works department does. But to hear about like special projects like this, it's like, oh, that's really interesting. Like this could be a career option, something I could want to do, especially, like you mentioned with your educational background and tying it to project management and how those things kind of, obviously correlate. And so kind of related to that, one of the questions we had was on if you have any and to share your thoughts on environmental science versus environmental engineering as a major.
Ooh, so everyone's background is a little bit different. I actually started in, I guess, a more engineering side of environmental science. I don't know if I'm able to, let me see if I do have that slide actually in the appendix. So if I can share a little bit about my college experience.
We would love that.
Yeah, so I actually chose to do my thesis actually on supercapacitors. So I know a lot of folks, my fellow cohorts, they did a lot of studies on actually, like a more biological side of things. I chose to do supercapacitors because I was thinking maybe I could go into fuel cell research. So Believe it or not, there is a lot of overlap between environmental science and engineering. If you go to college, you'll see that a lot of the classes do overlap. There might be a couple math classes such as calculus uh, that might have a little bit more involvement on the engineering side of things. So, and yeah, just give them more context for the pictures on the slide. I took just a random class in college. This is what actually I guess pushed me towards engineering is I had a chance to drive a $3.2 million fuel cell bus. And that was just a really cool experience. So I encourage those of you, if you don't know what your plans are, right when you enter college, that's fine. There's no problem with going to classes and just kind of exploring. So guarantee you'll find something to push you in that right direction. So I have no regrets. It was probably the most pivotal class in my career so far.
That's great. That's so fascinating. That must have been really intimidating to drive a bus like that. I don't know if people have seen, like the library has like a fleet of mobile vehicles that we use for our outreach events. I've personally never driven one, but they look really cool. It looks very intimidating. And these are just kind of like your mini, like they're a little bigger than a minivan. I forget exactly what the vehicle is, but they're like little mini buses in a way. But this bus you're talking about, that's intense.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that's the ones I actually drive around the Bay Area. So we went really slow, but similar to like
Yeah.
when you drive your first car, 5 miles per hour feels like 100. So we definitely took it very, very slow.
Good, I'm sure. And then we have a related question, I think, which you kind of answered, but someone specifically is looking for a career in green jobs like waste management, innovation, engineering. And so if there were any tips you had about, kind of the pathway academically, which I think you talked about a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. So if you're in college, my best advice is to, if you take on an internship, if you join a lab, that's probably the best way you're going to hear about these eco or green jobs, more environmental jobs. So it's getting those connections, and that'll be really important. There's also job boards, job bulletins as well, but absolutely the best way to get it is, I would say, internships and just reaching out to your professors. You can read what kind of papers they published. They can put you in contact with others in that field. But yeah, that's a great question. So for myself, I had to join a lab, and then I didn't do the supercapacitor research myself. I actually joined a lab. So I was working with PhD students. So that was a really great experience. Highly encouraged.
Awesome. And then similar, we have all these related questions. Everyone's been doing a great job on your questions. Please keep them coming. I know we still have more to get to. So someone was asking about internship opportunities with Public Works.
Oh, I do have a slide on that. So I'm glad I put these. These are great questions, you guys. Let's see. Hopefully I do have it. Do I have it here? I hope I do. Yes. So here's a link on the webpage or on the slide. So I encourage those of you, if you want to look into our student worker program, to go on our webpage. So I'm not sure. Let me see if I can post that into the chat box for everyone really quick.
Yeah, you might need the HTTPS part of it.
Oh,
yes. For it to hyperlink, but we can make sure to include that as well when we send.
Yeah, absolutely.
The link and other information.
Great question. So I hope that helps.
All right. Let's see. Okay, we talked about college experience and courses and what you studied. Okay, this is another kind of school-related question. Does civil engineering require a lot of math work or to be good at math?
So I'd say that it definitely is a component of being an engineer. You definitely have to take a lot of classes, not just in math, so things like calculus, but also physics. But I would say day to day, actually, you'll find out as you move in your career as a civil engineer that your soft skills are actually really important. So as you can tell, I'm talking with everyone here today. A lot of that is, as being an engineer, is being able to communicate with the public. So being able to say something technical and then, relay it in a way that's relatable to everyone, that actually I feel like is a little more important. So sorry, I deviated a little bit, but yes, there is a bit of math involved.
Okay. I am not the best math person, so I will not comment on that myself in terms of math. But I guess I wouldn't make a good engineer.
Hey, you never know.
That's okay. I think I do good as a librarian, so that's okay. Librarians have some math. We do a lot of statistics work in librarianship.
Very important.
Which I'm sure with engineering too, there's a lot of statistics work. So another related question. This one is kind of more in the project management aspect. So we have some questions shifting in that direction now. So someone was asking what software or technology you use for project renderings.
So we might be talking about our design. Let's see if I can go to that slide. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for bearing with me. All right. So here at Public Works, we do use a program called MicroStation. And I actually believe we're shifting to a hybrid, like a 2D and 3D design program. But if you go elsewhere, I believe most other firms, they might be using AutoCAD, but in general, you're using computer-aided design program to create these designs.
Okay, and sorry, my mute button got a little stuck. Let's see. What's the next question? Here we go. Oh, someone wanted to know if you could describe what a typical work week looks like for a project manager.
Yeah, so I can, I guess, share a little bit about my experiences being the project manager for this. So, a lot of the time is spent at our headquarters in Alhambra. But because we are working with a global or a nonprofit that is based in the Netherlands, they do make visits here. So a lot of the times you can find us in the field. We're scoping out the site. We do a lot of field visits just to make sure that what we have on our plans is accurate. So it's a little bit of indoor and outdoor work actually. And outside of just this project in general, a lot of our civil engineers here do go out to the field a lot. And then, of course, we do interact with the public. So sometimes we'll have community meetings, we'll host them. Previously, it used to be in person, but over the last 2.5 years, a lot of it is virtual, like we're doing today.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. That's good tips for people who are interested in this kind of work. I think we're winding down towards the end of the questions. We just scroll through I have 2 chats up. Let's see. This is a fun question that I almost missed. Someone wants to know what your favorite food is.
Ooh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much for asking. Oh, that's such a tough question. Oh my goodness. I would say if I had to pick one food to eat for the rest of my life, oh my goodness, it might have to be tacos. Oh gosh. Yep. I think living here in LA County, we're just so lucky. So I have to say tacos. You know what? That's probably my favorite food.
I would concur. That's a good pick always. They're so innovative.
Last question. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. There's one more. So what is the lifespan of the Interceptor?
I actually thought about that. I'm not sure if you're coming from like a life cycle assessment side of things. That's a great question, actually, that I'd love to find out from the ocean cleanup, right? Like maybe you're considering maybe the carbon footprint of it. I actually don't know. That's a great question. I think because the technology is so new. I mean, the ocean cleanup, they came about in 2013. I'm not sure if they have any conclusive, conclusive, evidence on the lifespan of the Interceptor yet. But that's a great question. I'll definitely have to ask them that during our next meeting.
Yeah, so definitely. So with the link to Public Works website or the survey, we can definitely follow. Feel free to follow up on that. I would definitely check the website or contact Tiffany for additional information about that. I think that is it for questions. There are a lot of thank yous in here spread throughout. So thank you again, Tiffany. But yeah, I think that's our last question. So we can go ahead and close out for today. Thank you all so much for being here and sticking around for the Q&A, which was really great and fascinating. And I feel like I've learned so much for sure. And I hope everyone else did as well. And with that, we will say goodbye. Stay safe, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.